Welcome to the fiscal year 2022 Avian Health Cooperative Agreement training. I am Patricia Fox and I'm the Avian Health Commodity Lead for Cooperative Agreements. The Cooperative Agreement Guide and the Cooperative Agreement Workbook are very similar to the previous years. Keep in mind that all the objectives will be listed in the workbook. The workbook will then be completed quarterly and serve as the narrative portion of the quarterly report, listing the progress on all of the stated objectives. The avian testing goals sheet of the avian surveillance workbook will also be filled out as a portion of the agreement package, listing the testing goals for the year. For this year, we'll be directly adding our surveillance testing numbers into the DIS system or data integration system. This will be done entirely online and keep us from having to turn in the spreadsheets on a quarterly basis. All of the data in the DIS system will be available and compiled for you. For the new DIS surveillance data entry system, all employees who will be inputting data or approving data will need access to that system. To get that access, please send a list of those employees with their email addresses directly to me, and we will send out applications as soon as possible. The beauty of this system is that it will limit the need to compile numbers from different sources or to update those spreadsheets on the quarterly reports. The numbers can be added as soon as the tests are completed or all at once when the quarterly report is due. In addition, historical data will be added to the system so that individual reports can be run at any time. We will have training sessions and a user guide will be made available in early 2022. This year, the DIS system will not be used for your avian health goals. You will still need to fill out one of these Excel spreadsheets to be submitted along with your cooperative agreement package. We're hoping that next year, the DIS system will have the functionality that you will put your avian health goals directly into the system. This year, we'll still have to use one of these Excel spreadsheets. Please remember that for all the objectives in the workbook to use SMART objectives. These are objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-phased. Objective number 1 is avian influenza surveillance. This includes only activities that result in the collection of diagnostic samples. Please list NPIP and non-NPIP activities separately. Please list measurable objectives, as in the number of trips, the number of mailers sent, the number of investigations, etc., not the number of tests. The number of tests will be listed under diagnostics in objective number 3. Remember that avian influenza surveillance is the cornerstone of this agreement. These objectives, with the diagnostic testing associated with them, should be the majority of the work activities supported by the cooperative agreement. Here's an example of objective 1 in the workbook. Notice that NPIP and non-NPIP activities are listed separately, and that only activities that include the submission of a diagnostic test are added under objective number 1. Also part of objective number 1 are passive surveillance objectives. These are your sick bird calls and necropsy submissions. Objective number 2 includes NPIP, live bird marketing system, and general avian health support. This is where other activities that do not result in diagnostic samples are listed, such as audits, inspections, or record checks. Again, please list NPIP and non-NPIP activities separately. Equipment and supplies should also be listed here. As a reminder, if any equipment, lab equipment, or depopulation equipment over the cost of $5,000 is being requested, be sure to include the laboratory equipment request form that is also in your cooperative agreement guide. Again, remember to use measurable objectives such as the number of trips or hours associated with data entry, record keeping, etc. Here is an example of some activities that might be associated with objective number 2. Audits, inspections, biosecurity audits, 9-4 forms, or cell phone contracts or supplies for employees. Objective number 3 is laboratory diagnostics. Remember that all tests should be listed as a cost per test, and that is inclusive of all costs beginning when the sample arrives at the laboratory to when the results are reported out. There are maximum test costs. A lab may only exceed the maximum if they have a published rate that is charged to other clients. Please make a note of this in the workbook and supply us with a copy of that published rate or a link to that published rate. Remember, we do not reimburse laboratories for antigen capture immunoassay testing. These are field level tests only. Test kits can be ordered under supplies. Do not list the cost as a cost per test, but as a cost per kit. The diagnostic necropsy charge in objective number 3 should include only the gross examination. Additional testing charges should be listed separately. Any diagnostic necropsy charge that is on a cooperative agreement that comes in over $75 will be sent back. The number of tests listed in your laboratory diagnostics section should match those entered on the avian testing goals sheet. Here is an example of the objective 3 in the workbook. Notice that they are listing a cost per test and that the numbers should be matching the goals spreadsheet. The gross necropsy charge only includes the accession and not other testing. Objective number 4 is for educational and outreach activities. Please list measurable objectives, including the number of trips or events, or the estimated number of participants. Remember that all educational materials that are funded with cooperative agreement dollars must be approved by Legislative and Public Affairs. Please allow 2 weeks for this approval. Send your materials to your agreement specialist and they will forward them on to LPA for approval. And again, promotional materials such as magnets, calendars, squishy animals are not allowable with agreement funds. Here's an example of Objective 4 activities. This includes outreach at fairs, small flock biosecurity training, and small flock biosecurity audit assistance. Notice that the number of fairs visited is listed, as well as the number of classes and number of attendees. Objective number 5 is travel and training. Remember that we may fund no more than 2 participants per meeting per cooperator with the cooperative agreement funding. In addition, you can include the NPIP training required for laboratory diagnosticians here. And keep in mind that if travel is being funded across commodities, please list the estimated percentage provided by Avian Health funding. Remember that after COVID, a lot of training and a lot of meetings were canceled. So if you have a very strong justification for more than 2 people attending, please include that because we will have to be a little bit flexible coming out of our COVID lockdowns. Here are some objective number 5 activities. Finally, objective number 6 is preparedness and response activities. One of the things that should be listed here is the review and exercise of your initial state response and containment plan. We do ask that that is reviewed annually, if for no other reason, to make sure that the contact information for all of your emergency management disease committee members is up to date. In addition, you may list PPE here, but remember that no more than 72 hours of PPE should be purchased for storage. Daily use PPE should be listed under objective number 2 with supplies. List the quarterly maintenance and exercise of depopulation equipment here, as well as any associated contracts. Preparedness and response assets and the cost to maintain and store them need to be of reasonable quantity. We can't fund a stockpile in every state, and now NVS assets can be deployed very, very quickly. Just a reminder that any equipment request over $5,000 should use the lab equipment request form. Here are some examples of Objective 6 activities. Reviewing and updating your initial state response and containment plan. List the number of attendees for that objective. You may have some avian FAD investigations. Put down the number of investigations. And certainly, if you're doing exercises or maintenance, put down the number of those that you completed as well. Finally, keep in mind that if you ever have any questions about how to fill out your workbook or what you need to put down or where, you can always call me at 919-806-6361 or send me a quick email. I'll be happy to help you with any questions you might have. Thank you.